The lie of goodness. Why power belongs to the ruthless. What Machiavelli tried to warn us about. What if everything you've been taught about power is a lie? A shimmering illusion designed to keep you obedient, hopeful, and blind. Have you ever wondered why the kindest leaders crumble under the weight of their own compassion, while the coldest, most ruthless ones carve their names into the stone of history? We're told that goodness wins, that fairness earns respect, that honesty builds trust. But what if the opposite is true? What if power doesn't care about your virtues? What if it only bows to those willing to wield fear like a blade? Picture a chessboard, ancient and cracked, stained with the blood of empires. On one side, a king who rules with kindness, his pieces moving with honor, his strategy rooted in trust. On the other, a king who plays with shadows, his moves calculated, his heart unyielding. The game begins, and the kind king hesitates, sparing a pawn, offering mercy. But the Shadow King strikes without remorse, sacrificing pieces, exploiting every weakness. By the end, the kind king's board is empty, his crown shattered, while the Shadow King stands victorious, his throne built on the bones of those who dared to trust him. This isn't a game. It's the brutal truth of power. A truth that history has whispered for centuries, a truth that Niccolò Machiavelli dared to scream. In the early 16th century, Machiavelli wrote The Prince, a book so raw, so unapologetically honest, that it shocked the world, not because it was cruel, but because it was real. Machiavelli didn't write to flatter kings or soothe the masses. He wrote to expose the machinery of power, to strip away the lies we tell ourselves about leadership and morality. He watched the rise and fall of rulers in Renaissance Italy, a world of betrayal, ambition, and bloodshed, and he saw what others refused to see. Power doesn't belong to the most virtuous, it belongs to the most calculating. He famously wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." Why? Because love is a fragile thread, easily snapped by betrayal or hardship, but fear is a chain, binding loyalty through survival, keeping the dagger at bay, securing the throne in a world where mercy is a death sentence. But let's dig deeper. Why does fear work? Why does power bend to the ruthless? Machiavelli understood a truth about human nature that most of us are too afraid to face. We're not driven by reason, but by primal forces, desire, insecurity, and fear. The 17th century philosopher Thomas Hobbes in Leviathan echoed this, describing humans in their natural state as solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Without a strong, controlling hand, Hobbes argued, we descend into chaos, a war of all against all. A great leader, then, doesn't just guide these instincts, they master them, wielding fear like a sculptor wields a chisel, carving order out of the raw stone of human nature. Machiavelli didn't advocate cruelty for its own sake. He advocated survival, a survival that demands a ruler to be flexible with morality, to wear virtue like a cloak when it suits them, and cast it aside when it doesn't. Now, let's stretch this into the mind-boggling. What if power isn't just a human game, but a cosmic one? The 20th century philosopher Michel Foucault took Machiavelli's ideas further, arguing that power isn't something you hold. It's a web, a network of forces that shapes every interaction, every institution, every thought. In Discipline and Punish, Foucault described how power operates through surveillance, control, and the subtle manipulation of norms. If he's right, then the ruthless don't just rise to power. They're the ones who understand the web, who see its threads and pull them with precision. The kind, the virtuous, they're caught in the web, tangled in their own ideals, while the ruthless weave it to their advantage, becoming not just players, but architects of reality itself. This brings us to a chilling question. What does this say about us, about the society we've built? We claim to value honesty, yet we reward deception. Politicians who lie, CEOs who exploit, influencers who manipulate. We say we want justice, but we follow those who bend the rules to their will. We celebrate kindness until it fails, until it's exploited, until it's crushed under the weight of ambition. Look at history. Julius Caesar was loved, but his mercy toward his enemies led to his assassination. Stalin, on the other hand, ruled through fear, purging millions and held power for decades. We may not like it, but the pattern is clear. Power doesn't care about your heart, it cares about your strategy. I've seen this in my own life, and maybe you have too. A few years ago, I watched a friend, a brilliant, kind-hearted leader, lose everything because he trusted the wrong people. He believed in fairness, in giving second chances, but those he spared turned on him, taking his position, his reputation, his dreams. Meanwhile, I've seen others, colder, more calculating, rise to heights I couldn't imagine, not because they were better, but because they played the game without hesitation. It made me wonder, are we all just pawns in a game we don't understand? Or can we learn to play it too? Machiavelli's genius wasn't in creating darkness, it was in revealing it, in ripping the mask off a world that hides its true face behind smiles, slogans, and promises of virtue. He showed us that the game of power has always existed, beneath the surface of every empire, every government, every corporation, a game where the rules aren't written in books, but in blood, fear, and survival. The ruthless don't apologize for these rules. They master them, bending them to their will, shaping the world in their image. So here's the question that will haunt you. Are you brave enough to see the brutal truth of power, even if it shatters your illusions? Are you willing to look past the fairy tales of goodness and into the architecture of control that shapes our reality? Because The Prince wasn't written for the naive, it was written for the few who dare to see the world as it is, not as they wish it to be. Once you see the game for what it is, you can never unsee it. You can either play or be played. What do you think? Does power truly belong to the ruthless, or can goodness still win? If this shook your worldview, hit that like button. Drop a comment. Do you think goodness is a lie? Subscribe and ring the bell for more mind-bending philosophy content. Let's dive deeper into life's toughest questions together.